Randy Lum and his 4-year-old son, Miles. So they were excited for Miles's first day at a new preschool last week. But their excitement didn't last long.
We caught a summer cold. And with any cold, for you to go back to school, you need a negative COVID test.
After just one day at school, Miles was home again. He went back on a Friday, but on Saturday, they got more bad news.
I get a call from the YMCA. Long story short, one of the kids over the weekend tested positive, and the kid was at school on Friday. So that's where this was in Miles's class. So Miles was exposed. So his class is automatically shut down for 2 weeks.
Lum and his wife Abigail are back to a reality they thought they'd moved past, trying to work from home while taking care of Miles and his younger sister Amelia. Though Amelia wasn't exposed, they're also keeping her home for 2 weeks.
Abby's upstairs, working normally, and I'm just stuck downstairs with the devils.
At most childcare centers, it still looks like 2020. Kids 12 and under are unvaccinated, so everyone ages 2 and up are wearing masks. And providers are still taking other precautions, which is hard on their business. So says Laura Cohn, an early education and childcare advisor.
Some of them are choosing to serve fewer kids or serve them in stable groups that make it harder to staff. And all of those things are just reducing the total amount of revenue that they can pull in for their business. And already these are businesses operating on thin to non-existent margins.
Sally Chenoweth, the owner of Discovery Preschool in Oceanside, says she's now at 70% capacity. And she's allowing groups of kids to mix in the morning and evening so she can extend her hours. But she can't count on consistency, especially now that the Delta variant is causing cases to surge again.
Like, I could have called off my wait list and filled up all of my classes like right away. Could have done it, but I'm just so worried that things are going to go back in the other direction, and then I'm going to have to ask all these people that started, now you have to leave and go do something else.
Chenoweth says she, like many providers, are struggling to hire new staff. She's also had to pass on costs to parents. This year, she raised rates by 8%. Holly Weber, the owner of Magic Hours Children's Center in Mira Mesa, says she's at 60% capacity now. And she's stuck at that level because she can't hire more qualified staff to increase class sizes.
The only thing that's stopping us is having a qualified staff member to continue to build.
The COVID vaccine for kids 2 and up should be a glimmer of hope on the horizon. It could possibly come by late fall or early winter. But it doesn't make Weber feel much better.
Once it becomes available, how many parents are willing and comfortable? What if we have a significant amount of parents who are uncomfortable to vaccinate their child? How much longer are these restrictions going to continue to affect child development centers?
One positive is that masks have really cut down on the typical illnesses that usually course through daycare centers. Weber says she plans to use them well into the future during cold and flu season, but she's worried about the developmental impacts.
We have 2-year-olds that have never seen the faces of their caregivers.
For parents like Lum, he knows the year ahead will likely involve staying at home from work when a kid is sick, even with just a runny nose. And that puts new weight on his day-to-day decisions.
Having kids at home who are not vaccinated, who won't be vaccinated for probably another year, I'm going to wear a mask. I'm going to wear a mask like nothing's changed because nothing has.
Claire Trageser, KPBS News.
The county reports 70% of eligible San Diegans are fully vaccinated, and even more have at least one shot. We have plenty of vaccine resources at kpbs.org, including a map of locations. Just click on the vaccines link on our homepage. Our COVID-19 live blog is also getting a lot of traffic. Here are some of the other stories resonating with readers this week. Nearly 250,000 Californians are state workers, and soon they'll need to provide proof of vaccination or get regular COVID tests. UC San Diego Health says it's dealing with a data breach that involves employee email accounts, and a San Diego man says he experienced banking while Black. KPBS investigative reporter Amitha Sharma has his story.
John Pittman III is a lawyer who also spent 19 years working in the finance industry. He knows the banking business.
And, they verify if there's an issue.
So the San Diego resident was prepared in early 2020 when he went to a Bank of America branch in Pacific Beach to cash a $12,000 check from an insurance settlement. The payment from the Geico insurance company was a B of A check, but just in case, he brought additional paperwork from Geico and 3 forms of identification: a driver's license, passport, and birth certificate. Yet that wasn't enough for the branch's assistant manager.
She came back and then she was telling me that she can't cash it because my name had the 3rd on my identification, but the 3rd wasn't written on the check.
But the suffix "3rd" on Pittman's name was written on the rest of the Geico documents. He suggested the assistant manager contact Geico to confirm his identity.
And she's like, no, we can't. We have no way, even if we call to verify, we have no way to notate that we verified.
Pittman says he called Geico on his cell phone, put the insurance representative on speakerphone to address the assistant manager's concerns.
And the assistant manager says, well, I don't know who you are. You could be just one of his friends he's calling.
Pittman again asked her to call Geico. She refused to make that call, but said she made another.
Said she's going to talk to the manager. And she comes back and says, we've notified the authorities. So you're trying to steal the money from the real John Pittman.
Pittman says on the advice of the Geico representative, he exited the bank but was left with an aching thought.
So I'm thinking, this would not have happened if I wasn't a Black person. I just cannot see them calling the police on every person that they get a check that doesn't have junior or the 3rd or whatever on it. That just doesn't make sense.
Pittman says the B of A branch manager told him more than a year later that the assistant manager was only pretending to call the police. KPBS tried to interview that B of A branch manager, but he declined. B of A corporate spokesman Bill Hallidan says it is standard industry practice not to cash a check if the recipient name and identification don't precisely match to protect against potential fraud. But is it standard industry practice to accuse a customer of stealing and then threaten to call the police, as Pittman says B of A did with him?
It's unfortunately not uncommon for us to hear stories of racialized and racist behavior in financial institutions.
Hudson Munoz is a research analyst with the Committee for Better Banks, which represents industry workers and consumers.
It is a problem when the first response at any organization is to involve the police rather than to treat the customer as a truthful person, especially given the materials that this person had to back up the identity.
The term advocates use to describe these situations is banking while Black. Black customers have long complained of being confronted with skepticism, hurdles, and calls to police while seeking basic transactions. Ed Golding is executive director of MIT's Golub Center for Finance and Banking. He says race isn't likely the only issue in Pittman's case. The size of the check and the fact that Pittman wasn't a customer were also factors, but he says they don't excuse the assistant manager's alleged actions.
It seems like from the facts of this case, it was a very inappropriate way of saying, go away, we don't want to serve you.
Bank of America ultimately sent a letter to Pittman standing by its policy. However, the letter also stated, quote, "We regret any inconvenience you may have encountered as a result of this matter and apologize for any service provided that did not meet your expectations." But Pittman wanted the bank to apologize specifically for the assistant manager's behavior. He also asked for monetary damages, which the bank refused. He says he still feels demoralized.
It makes you feel 2 inches tall a little bit. It makes you feel targeted.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
Dozens of local apartment buildings are part of a $1 billion real estate deal. The seller is a major local philanthropic organization. KPBS race and equity reporter Christina Kim talked with renters who are caught in the middle.
Housing is a human right. Local leaders and tenant right advocates gathered in National City demanding that the Conrad Priebus Foundation stop the sale of its nearly 6,000 housing units to the private equity firm Blackstone.
Fight, fight, fight! Housing is a human right!
Standing in front of the Golden Tree Apartments, Anne Maureen McCullough has called this building home for the last 3 years. It's one of the 66 buildings the foundation is selling to Blackstone for a total of more than $1 billion. Most of the proceeds will go towards the foundation's many philanthropic efforts in San Diego, including KPBS. McCullough, who is also a member of the tenants' right organization ACE, says she's worried what will happen to her family when Blackstone takes over.
I'm afraid that we got to move on because they're not in favor of us. They're in favor of themselves and growing their money higher.
The New York City-based Blackstone has been buying up low-income and moderate-income housing complexes across the country. In a statement to KPBS, Kathleen McCarthy, the global co-head of Blackstone Real Estate, wrote, "We expect that a resident making 80% or less of AMI will continue to find the majority of units affordable. We plan to make substantial capital investments exceeding $100 million to address unaddressed resident requests." McCarthy also wrote Blackstone's renovation of the apartments will generate 500 local jobs. McCullough, who pays $1,400 a month for a roach-infested one-bedroom apartment, doubts she'll benefit from any upgrades.
So they maybe try to offer us something because, pretty much that's what they do to make it in a more bougie apartment. And then maybe the amount that they give us can't even fund to where we want to go. It depends.
National City Vice Mayor Jose Rodriguez says he's not confident that Blackstone will keep any promises it's making. And he's warning Blackstone that a strong tenants' rights culture is growing in the San Diego region.
The good thing of doing these public actions is to ensure that this new prospective buyer knows what they're dealing with, and they're dealing with tenants that are organized, with elected officials that want to make sure that we represent everybody and everybody's interests, so that they know this is going to be a fight once the sale goes through.
Blackstone Group expects the transaction to close later this year. Christina Kim, KPBS News.
We have more from Christina Kim, including our latest community conversation on the meaning behind the term Latinx. You can stream it on the KPBS YouTube page. It's been a month of pain and progress for cyclists in San Diego. These two stories from KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen detail the recent spike in deadly crashes on our streets and the work that's being done to make them safer.
She was kind and brilliant and beautiful.
Kristen Victor remembers her friend and colleague Laura Shin, a prominent local architect who was struck and killed by a driver last Tuesday while riding her bike up Pershing Drive in Balboa Park.
Well, it's really close to home because we both advocated for a safer, more sustainable San Diego. It was in our hearts.
Shin was one of 5 people who were killed while biking in San Diego County over the past month.
Safe streets now! Safe streets now!
Dozens of activists gathered near the crash site to call on San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria and other local leaders to build safe bike infrastructure with a greater sense of urgency. Plans to add protected bike lanes to Pershing Drive have been on the books for nearly a decade, but they've been repeatedly delayed, as have a host of other bike safety projects across the county.
The choice to ride should not cost us our lives. This is the time for our government leaders to act quicker than ever before.
The activists want Gloria to commit to building 25 miles of protected bike lanes in San Diego each year. Gloria's office says it's working on plans to build bike infrastructure more quickly, but the mayor has not yet committed to a timeline. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News. Just a few months ago, 30th Street was only for the bravest of cyclists, those willing to share a lane on a busy thoroughfare with cars zooming by. Now, cyclists have their own lane, protected from traffic with a painted buffer zone, plastic poles, and in some places, a line of parked cars.
It's so relaxing, and I really feel like, I can ride forever.
North Park resident Marissa Tucker-Borquez says the difference is night and day.
And the places where they were able to add additional parking back in, that parking really feels quite protective and actually adds as like an additional barrier. So I think overall, in terms of like the compromises that were made with the community, I feel like they did a really solid job.
Currently, the bike lanes stretch 1.5 miles from Juniper Street to Polk Avenue. In a few months, the city plans on extending them north by another mile to Adams Avenue. The design isn't perfect. On a quick ride up and down 30th Street, we had to weave into traffic to avoid a UPS truck parked in the bike lane. But Tucker-Borquez says there's time to make improvements.
I have seen beautiful designs with planters. I've seen beautiful designs with cement or trees. So I think that as this corridor evolves and as this corridor changes, I think there's tons of opportunity to, I would love to see a lot more greenery.
We did get one Yelp review that said parking is a challenge.
Laura Wurm owns Bivouac Cider Works on 30th Street. She says she feels for her fellow business owners worried about how the loss of street parking will impact their livelihoods. But she notes there's an underutilized parking garage on 30th Street with some of the cheapest rates in San Diego. And even with less parking, last weekend during Pride, she got more business than any time since the pandemic.
This is a compromise. We need to share the roads, we need to share the neighborhoods, and we need to plan for progress together. And so it doesn't do anyone any good to be fighting. It doesn't do anyone any good to, hate bikers or hate businesses. That just doesn't make sense because we need each other.
Many residents and business owners don't share Wurm's optimism, and a lawsuit challenging the project is ongoing. Meanwhile, cyclists are planning a group bike ride on August 1st to celebrate the new bike lanes. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
In North County, a cyclist hurt in a serious accident is recovering at a brand new rehab hospital. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman got a look inside and shows us how it helps people make the transition back to their homes.
Nice work. All
right. All right. 77-year-old Doug Bailey is in the middle of a physical therapy session.
Let's go kind of around the front of the car.
Okay. After a horrible bike accident which broke his neck and caused spinal cord damage, Bailey was transferred to the new Palomar Health Rehabilitation Institute.
I'm lucky to be alive, actually. Could have been serious enough to stop my breathing.
While Bailey's brain is working fine, he's having to relearn how to use it. 2 weeks before being admitted to the Rehab Institute, he was wheelchair bound.
They taught me how to walk again, actually, and how to use new neural pathways. Since the spinal cord is damaged, and what the brain, my brain thinks I can get up and go for a little jog right now, but it doesn't work that way.
With a few hours of physical therapy a day, Bailey says he feels himself getting stronger.
I can tell I'm improving. My function in the fingertips, I couldn't do this before at all, and so it's coming back faster than. Not as fast as I'd like, but faster than anticipated.
That's good.
Okay.
Your balance is getting better.
Yeah.
Bailey is also undergoing occupational therapy here.
Putting on my clothes, bathing myself, feeding myself.
Most patients stay here for just under 2 weeks, but Bailey has a 30-day stay. And while he can walk again, the next part of his recovery will focus on refining his motor skills.
Like right now, I don't even think I could sign my name to a piece of paper, but I think that'll improve a lot.
The idea behind this facility is to prepare people for a return to normal lives. And for some, that could mean learning how to use a washer and a dryer again, or even more simpler tasks like learning how to open and close a refrigerator. The rehab facility is technically a hospital and also has a full apartment inside where patients can stay overnight just before being released back into their homes.
What is your typical day like at home? Are you a golfer? Is that where we want to go with this? Are you a walker, a hiker? What types of activities do you want to be able to tolerate when you go home? And that's sort of how we build that plan.
Natalie Jermuska is CEO of the Rehab Institute, which is a joint venture between Palomar Health and Kindred Hospital.
There's definitely a need, especially in the North County, for this type of care. And it's a separate entity from a normal acute care. So we have specialized equipment, we have special trained nursing staff.
Some of that special equipment includes motion sensing technology, which can be used in games that help people regain balance and function. There's also a small car inside the gym that patients can practice getting in and out of.
Our hospital's pretty much built for that rehabilitation patient. It doesn't have OB, it doesn't have ER. We're not competing for resources. Everything is built around rehabilitation.
The 52-bed facility was licensed by the state in May and is only accepting Medicare patients, but that will change as operations are gradually scaled up over the next year.
We would like to see, and what we've seen just with our small population, is 84 to 90% of our patients go home. They don't need to go to a skilled level for further care.
The facility generally treats patients who suffered strokes, amputations, and spinal cord damage.
I want you to not hold on if you don't have to.
Okay.
This is actually his first time walking without holding on to anything.
Bailey's progress is remarkable. He's hoping to be at or near 100% function soon. Right now, he still has to wear a brace around his body and neck.
I'm hoping that as my strength returns and my balance returns, that I won't have to wear as many braces anyway. Maybe not even a neck brace when I get out of here. I don't know.
He says if you're coachable and with encouragement from staff, recovery is possible. But he's not sure what life will be like once he goes home.
I think my bicycling days might be over just because I'm my wife's primary caregiver. And I don't want to jeopardize that any more than I have to.
I want you to do it really safely, slowly.
Without touching anything.
Try not to. If you have to, it's here.
The Fallbrook resident is set to go home at the end of this month.
Yes. Yes. Nice work. Turn around for me.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Also in North County, a story that shows it's hard to stop a group of determined moms. Tanya Thorne shows us how they noticed a problem in their Vista neighborhood, and instead of walking past it, they decided to do something.
Every Wednesday morning, Jovita Serafin gets supplies ready for her volunteers. She supplies buckets, trash bags, gloves, and grabbers for the group of people meeting her at Luz Duran Park in Vista. We're a group of volunteer moms and grandmas, and right now, since the kids are out of school, the children come and help too. They call themselves Guerreras en Acción para un Vista Limpio, or Warriors in Action for a Cleaner Vista. We want to see our community clean, with a healthy environment for our children, for the elderly that walk the streets, and for the people that are in wheelchairs. Some of the wheelchairs are hand-pushed, and their hands get dirty because of all the trash that the wheelchairs touch. Serafin says the group often picks up masks, used needles and syringes, pet feces, and bottles. We want to raise awareness for Vista residents to please join us by keeping our city clean. Dispose of your trash correctly, especially face masks. We've been finding that a lot. The group has been cleaning the streets of Vista for 2 years. Michael Saldana is a firefighter with the Vista Firefighters Association and a Vista resident. He often volunteers with the group.
It started off pretty rough. There's a lot of trash that they were finding, a lot of needles. And that's kind of what it was born out of, is them finding needles as they walk their kids to school, finding a lot of trash as they walk their kids to school. And instead of riding someone or trying to make waves, they decided to take responsibility for it and organize these walks.
Murph Silliman, a firefighter paramedic with the Vista Fire Department, says he especially enjoys seeing the kids volunteer with the group.
I think just us being with the kids here today and just walking around, and they kind of get the exposure, and not only that, they're just asking what we do, and we're exposing the kids to us helping out, and then now they want to get more involved too. They're like, well, we should do more things like this, and that's just awesome seeing these young guys out here and gals.
I asked the kids why they like to volunteer.
Because we want our town to be clean.
And how does it make you feel when you see all this trash everywhere?
Really sad.
The volunteers meet here at Luz Duran Park in Vista every Wednesday at 9 a.m. And they welcome any new volunteers of all ages to come and help out clean up their neighborhood. In Vista, Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
And we end the show with the return of the KPBS Summer Music Series. Over the coming weeks, we will be sharing performances by a wide range of local artists. All will be posted to the KPBS YouTube page. Our first performance is Jelani Aryeh. His new album, I've Got Some Living to Do, is out this weekend. Thank you so much for watching.
Fall for every woman on my set. Tend to play out what we'd be like in a set. These words
I just want people to connect with the music, and I want them to feel something. That's really like my main goal at the end of the day. I feel like just after listening to my music, having a better sense of what you're going through, or just, yeah, I don't know, a better sense of self at the end of the day.
Probably why I tend to space and carry this barren look on my face. Hey, Dad, I don't wanna play cause it makes me hard.
So the title of my new album is called I've Got Some Living to Do. And it kind of just, it came to me when I was driving back from Los Angeles to SD, and I was thinking about the next album, Let Us Have Our Time. And I was like, what do I want to say with that album? And I was like, I've got some living to do. And so when I came up with that kind of sentiment, I was like, the title feels right. And it almost feels like you're just young, 21 years old, and figuring out how to like live and navigate life. And I'd say like physically, mentally, emotionally.